I've been giving a lot of thought this week to the concept of grace in the Christian faith and why it matters. The two best books I've read on that topic are Ragamuffin Gospel by Brennan Manning and What's So Amazing About Grace by Philip Yancey. And I recently found an article about grace that's from the New York Times from back in 2018, and he quotes Yancey. Listen to how it starts. In his book, What's So Amazing About Grace, Philip Yancey describes a conference on comparative religions where experts from around the world debated which belief, if any, was unique to the Christian faith. C.S. Lewis happened to enter the room during the discussion. When he was told the topic was Christianity's unique contribution among world religions, Lewis responded, "Oh, that's easy. It's grace." Lewis was right. No other religion places grace at its theological center. It was a revolutionary idea. As Mr. Yancey puts it, grace seems to go against every instinct of humanity. We are naturally drawn to covenants and karma, to cause and effect, to earning what we receive. Grace is different. It is the unmerited favor of God, unconditional love given to the undeserving. It's a difficult concept to understand because it isn't entirely rational. Grace defies reason and logic. As Bono, the lead singer of U2, put it, love interrupts, if you like, the consequences of your actions. There's a radical equality at the core of grace. None of us are deserving of God's grace, so it's not independent on social status, wealth, or intelligence. There is equality between kings and peasants, the prominent and the unheralded, rule followers and rule breakers. I really like that, and I think it's so needed right now. Every day I read about people who wear masks or who don't wear masks. I hear from people who are afraid and are freaking out, and I hear from people who are angry and believe their rights are getting trampled on. It's pretty weird out there, right? As a friend said to me recently, we are not really all in this together, despite what all the commercials say. We are all in the same storm, but we are in very different boats. That makes a lot of sense to me. Depending on what kind of boat you're in right now, that will really color your perception of how bad the storm is. With that in mind, I really think Christians need to be leading the way in grace. This is what the church can offer. We can be the grace givers. We can model what it means to disagree agreeably. So how does that look in the day-to-day? Well, here's an example from my life. Yesterday, within the course of about an hour, I heard two things that came down from the governor and from our mayor. What do we call those things? Executive orders, proclamations. I've heard people say edict lately, and I'm like, edict? Like, seriously? If an edict is coming for us, it better come from like the king's page, and that dude better be on a horse and blowing like one of those trumpets with the long trumpets with like the flag hanging down from him, and he better start his edict with like, hear ye, hear ye. It's weird, right? So anyway, the governor and the mayor both said things that I didn't like. Now, often people in power say things I don't like. They say them, they tweet them, they whatever. But both said things that I can't ignore, and about public safety and about church. Those are two things I'm invested in. So I have a choice. I can put them on blast on Twitter or Facebook. That seems to be a common approach. I can send them some angry letters or emails. I can let everybody know how upset I am. Maybe I could get a petition started. I can say they're wrong, and I can get names on a list of people who agree with me who also want to say that they're wrong. And that will feel really good to just be right, because man, nothing feels as good as being right. Or I can say to myself, hey, the governor and mayor are under a lot of pressure. Pressure that I don't want. They're having to make very hard decisions with many variables. They probably have access to data that I don't have. Maybe they are doing the best they can with the information that they have. Now, I can already hear some of you arguing that in your head, right? You're like, no, they're not making the best decisions. They are politically motivated. This is all political posturing. They are making dumb decisions based on self-interest. Okay, you may be right. I may be wrong. The truth is, neither of us really know their hearts. We don't know their motives. We aren't mind readers. One thing I've learned in 22 years of marriage is that I'm not really good at reading the minds of someone close to me. I barely understand my own motives. Why would I assume I'm great at reading the mind of the mayor, or the governor, or the president? So I have a choice. I can get angry and whipped up about it, or I can choose to respond with grace. I can choose to have a charitable read on their motives. Grace comes to us from God. We have blown it, but He loves us anyway. Our motives are bad, but he loves us anyway. We are unkind, but he loves us anyway. And we are called to accept that grace from him and then extend that grace to others. That's it. Extending grace to others is good for them and helpful to them, right? But it's also really good for us. When I move towards extending grace to other people, I get less angry and I'm less anxious and I don't give in to fear. And I think all of us could use some less anxious, less angry, and less giving in to fear. So my challenge is for us in the church, be the grace givers this week. Don't let the virus divide us as a church, because I already see the warring factions of that within the church where people are, you're doing it wrong, and all this. Don't let the virus divide us as the church, and don't let the virus divide you from your fellow men and women, from the people in our community. The Apostle Paul reminds us of this in Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. He says, let your speech, and I would add, and your keyboards, always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. God bless you guys. I hope to see you all soon.